Hello and welcome to our second chapter in Blender where we are going to work with object mode and primitive. So to understand this, let us first launch Blender. Blender is already launched and I will come into its default screen. So right now you are seeing cube, camera and a lamp. Now here, if you have your cube selected, then if you come on the left hand side, you can see right now we are in the object mode. But if I click on this drop down, you can see there are 6 modes: object mode, edit mode, sculpt mode, vertex paint, weight paint and texture paint. So in this case, we are now starting with the object mode. And when you are working with object mode, you have 4 menus available here: view, select, add and object. And now we are going to start with this add menu. But before I start working on that, I first want you to introduce you to the unit system and the measurement system in 3D softwares. Whether it is Blender, 3ds Max or Maya, this system remains the same. To give you an example now, you would have worked with many 2D softwares like Word or Photoshop or Illustrator. Now in all these packages, when you measure an image, say for example we say the document size is A4, or we say in Photoshop this photo size is 8 by 12. So in these cases, how do we measure it? Actually, if I take for example simple Word document, here always our point of origin in a 2D program will be the top left corner, and when we move from left to right, the value is going to increase and this determines the width of your document. And then when you start from the top left and move down, this indicates the height of your document, and you have here see value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coming down. So in a 2D environment, we have an origin and the value runs positive either from left to right or from top to bottom. And in most of the 2D softwares, you will never have the negative value. We never go to the left of this origin, neither we go above of this origin. So we have only positive values and we have 2 values, x representing the width and y representing the height. So now if I come back to Blender, I will select this cube, press X on your keyboard, and when you press X on your keyboard, you will get this delete menu, and I am going to get deleted it. And after deleting it, now I will press 7 on my keyboard and come to the top view. Now from the top view you can see that you have 2 lines running here. One is the red line from left to right and another is the green line from top to bottom. And remember, the difference between 3ds Max, Maya and Blender is, in 3ds Max and Maya, the default view will be the front view, meaning that when you are seeing from top view, this will be the X as it is, but this will not be Y, but this will be Z. Because if I middle click and rotate it, and I will also come here to the overlay menu and enable the Z axis. So now in case of 3ds Max and Maya, left to right is X, top to bottom is Y, and coming front or going back is Z. So when you are seeing an object, your left to right movement or right to left movement is X, top to bottom or bottom to top is Y, and when the object comes closer to you or moves away from you, this we call it as Z. But when it comes to Blender, in Blender everything is like seeing in a Google map. It is like seeing your entire object or your entire world from the space. We call it as the God's view or satellite view. So in Blender, whatever you see, it appears as though you are seeing from the satellite. And just like Google Maps, here in top view, left to right represents the x-axis, and this moving to the front and back represents the y-axis. But if from the top view, if you move on to the front view, the object moving from center to top or center to bottom is represented as z-axis. And in every axis, from the origin point, if you move towards the right, the value will be positive, and if you move towards the left, value will be negative. Similarly, when you are moving forward from the center to forward, it is positive. From the center to backward, it is negative. And similarly, when you move the object from center to top, it is positive. From center to bottom, it is negative. And the point where all these x, y and z lines come and collide, we call this point as the point of origin. And at the point of origin, the value of x, y and z will be 0. So right now, our cursor, you can see the cursor here, it is set to this 0 point. How can I change that cursor position? I can change it in two ways. One is I can come here in the tool, select the cursor and click anywhere in the screen, the cursor goes over there. And if I select, I will come back here and I will select back my selection tool. And the keyboard shortcut is, if you press shift on your keyboard and right click, shift and right click will actually convert your mouse click into cursor. So wherever you press shift and right click, that becomes the cursor point. And now, what is this cursor point currently? Where is this cursor point located? With middle mouse, if I rotate and see, its value, you can see it on the right hand side. If I click N on my keyboard, you see this sidebar, and here you have one view tab, and in view tab you have 3D cursor. Right now this cursor is at X 3.0, Y 0.7 and Z 2.2. What is the purpose of this cursor is, wherever this cursor is placed, when you go to add, and if you add any object to the scene, that object will be added at the point of this cursor. So now, say for example, I will set my cursor in X, I will set it to 4, Y I set it to 2 and Z I set it to 2. So I have given some value here. And now if I go to add mesh and if I add a cube, you can see the cube is added exactly at that cursor point. So right now I will select this cube, press X and delete it. Now to bring the cursor to the center, to always keep it at the center, now you can do this. One, come to the view, then in location, set the X value to 0, Y value to 0 and Z value to 0. So now the cursor is exactly at your origin point. But the other shortest way of doing it is, say I will again select the cursor and click somewhere here. Now I want the cursor back here at the origin, means you can go to view, align view, and here you have one option, center cursor and frame all, and the keyboard shortcut is shift plus C. So now if I just press shift and C, the cursor will come to the center, and in your screen you are going to see all the objects present in your scene will come into your view. So this Shift plus C, we use it commonly in Blender to come to this, to reset our view with all the object being viewed, and also to set the cursor back to its origin point. And now knowing this, then the very first thing we are going to do here is, in 3D, we are going to first create our model. Whether it might be a cube, cylinder, or a table, chair, sofa, any object you want, and this process we call it as modeling. And to start doing modeling, Blender provides us some basic objects and we call this as primitives. I can come here to add, and even for this add menu, the keyboard shortcut is Shift plus A. Either I can come here add, and in the mesh, the very first object we are seeing here is the plane. So when I click on the plane here, then immediately what happens is, you have a plane created at the origin point. As soon as I create the plane, one thing you have to observe is, on your left hand side, a short menu is created and it is called as Add Plane. And this menu, if you come to view, Adjust Last Operation, this should be ticked on. If you tick it off, it goes away. And if it goes away, then you cannot adjust the parameter of your object once you have added. So now I cannot adjust the parameter of this plane. So this plane is, if I select this and if I come to the item view here, you can see this has a dimension of 2 meter in X, 2 meter in Y, and in Z it is 0 because it is a plane. There is no thickness. Okay. Now if I had to set this, I can only set it here in the dimension or scale, rotation, these things I can do, but I cannot reset its creation parameters. If you have this view adjust last operation, always remember to keep this on. So by default also it will be on, but don't switch it off, let it be on always. And now I will come to add mesh, and this time instead of the plane I am going to add a cube. Now when I click on the cube, you can see the cube is created. You can come in your scene collection and you can see you have two objects, plane and cube, but the plane you cannot see at all because the plane is sitting inside this cube. And the second thing is, as soon as I created this cube, again on the left hand side, I have this add cube menu. And if I open this, you have some parameters that you can adjust as soon as you create the cube. Say for example, for this cube, I doesn't want its size to be 2 meters. I want its size to be 1 meter. Then I can click here and make this 1 meter. And second thing is, I want this cube to be placed exactly to one corner of my plane. I want this to be present at one corner. So to do this, say I will come to top view. I will press numpad 7 and come to top view. And if I press numpad period, you are focused only on this cube area. Now I will zoom it out. Remember, if you are a good 3D modeler, you have to use the mouse minimum and keyboard the maximum. So to move this from here to here, you can use the move tool and you can move it. But when you are creating and you already know I want this exactly here means, what you can do is, in your creation parameter, you have position and rotation. So if I set, see now this background plane is 2 meter by 2 meter, cube is 1 meter. and if I want this cube to be present at this corner, then I have to move this in this direction by 1 meter plus see this 0.5 meter. Means if I move it along the x by 1.5 meter, see it will come and sit exactly at the edge of this plane. And if I want it to come here, then along the y also I want to move it along 1.5 meter. And if I middle click and turn it, see you are seeing it at the center. I want it to start from here. Then in Z I have to move this from 0.5 meters. So now what happened is my cube is placed exactly at this point. Okay, so now by placing this, now if I click somewhere here, I take the selection tool. I was in the cursor tool, so I will take the collection tool and I will press Shift C again to bring the cursor to the center. If I do any other operation, so if I click somewhere and if I again select it, see this creation parameter disappears. You are not going to get it back. And now the next primitive I am going to now add is, I will come back to add here, and in mesh I am now next going to add a circle. And when I add this circle, I will again get this add circle parameter. Now I will come over to the top view. You can see the circle is added here, but I want this circle to be placed exactly below this plane. So the thing is, this circle right now the radius is 1 meter. If radius is 1 meter, this diameter is 2 meters. Okay. So now to move it down along the y-axis, I have to move it by 1 meter. It is minus, not 1, minus 2. If I click 1 here and 1 here, if I move it by y-axis by 2 meters, it comes and sits exactly below this plane. In case of a circle, we have, see, 3 parameters to adjust apart from position and rotation. The 3 parameters are, first is the number of vertices. So now I will press the period scale on my numpad, and now here you can see this entire circle is not a pure circle. This is made up of straight lines running between vertex point, and right now this circle is made up of 32 vertices. Now if I make this vertices 16, then you can see the curvature or the outer smoothness has reduced. You have only 16 vertices. And if I make it 8, see, it became an 8-sided polygon. So now this is no more a circle, but this is a 8-sided polygon. If I make it 6, this became a 6-sided polygon. If I make it 4, this becomes a square. And if you make it 3, this becomes a triangle. So when you add here, coming over here, and when you add mesh, he has given only circle. You may ask, how can I add a triangle? How can I add a rectangle? Means, see, in the same circle, if I set the number of vertices to 3, it becomes a triangle. If I set the number of vertices to 4, this is going to become a square. So right now I will add 6 vertices, and I am now going to make this a hexagon. This is now a hexagon. And now in this hexagon, as of now you are seeing only the outline. But if I doesn't want just the outline, I want this to be filled with a face. What is face? We are going to discuss it later. But if you want to add a face here, you have another option here, fill type. You have radius, which is set to 1 meter. This is about the size. If I change the radius to 2 meters, you can see it became bigger. If I make it 0.5, this is going to become smaller. Okay, so now say for example, let us set the radius to 0.5, and now if I want this to touch the tip here, then instead of -2, I have to move it by 1.5. Okay, so this will be placed with shift and middle mouse. I will pan it and show it to you. So this is exactly placed here. Now you may ask, I doesn't want the tip to touch here. I want this to be rotated and placed like this. Then you can go to the rotation and along the Z axis, because you are, see, I will rotate and show it to you. In X, if you rotate it, it is going to rotate between this X axis. Okay. And if I rotate it along the Y, this is going to rotate along the Y axis. So I will set X to 0, Y to 0, and Z when I rotate it, so it rotates like this, and if I rotate it exactly by 30 degree, this will be straight sitting here, and it has to now move a little to the top. So instead of minus 1.44, it will just touch the circle, and I want this to be here at this point. Then you can move it along the x-axis. So in the x-axis, I have to move it by minus 0.75, and okay, so at minus 0.75, this is sitting exactly at this corner. And now the next thing is, this is not filled. To fill it, I will come into the fill type here, and it is showing nothing as of now. But if I have two options here, one is the n-gon fill. N-gon fill means when I click on n-gon, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 edges. So if you come over here in the overlay, and in this overlay you enable the statistics, it is showing me that this object is currently having one object. It has 6 vertices, 6 edges, and 1 face. Now instead of n-gon, if I use the other type of fill, triangle fan, now you are not seeing any difference over here. But if you come to wireframe view, now you can see this is the triangle fan fill and this is n-gon. In n-gon you have only 6 edges, but in a triangle fan you will have 12 edges, and every face will be a triangle. We call this as triads and quads. So when we come to modeling topology, we are going to talk about this later. So you just remember that when you create a fill to any object, either you can fill it as an n-gon filling the entire area, or you can use this triangle fan. Right now I will use this triangle fan so that I have more control in modifying this model. I will come back to solid view now. I have to rename here this circle as hexagon now, because this is no more a circle, this is a hexagon. I can come over here to add mesh, and I will add the next object, which is an UV sphere. And when I click on this UV sphere, see in the statistics you can see as of now there are 482 vertices, 992 edges, and 512 faces. So just remember what the terms here. I will explain you what is vertices, edge and face in detail when we come into the edit mode. So right now you just know the value. We will explore it and we are going to understand it later. So right now, as soon as I created, again I have this creation parameter wherein the segments of this UV sphere is now 32. It has 32 segments, means if I come into the wireframe view, you can see you have these longitudes running from top to bottom. In case of when you are studying with map or geography, you might have heard about the longitudes. Longitudes are the line that runs from the North Pole to the South Pole. So you have these lines, Right now, this is divided into 32 longitudes. Now, if I reduce this segment to, say for example 3 is the minimum, then you can see now this object has just 3 latitudes. See 1, you can see 2 and 3. Okay, so the shape of this object will no more be a sphere, but you will have this unique shape wherein you have only 3 longitudes, and rings represents the latitude. Latitude means if I come back to the wireframe area, you are seeing these lines running horizontally. We call this in a map as a latitude. When you are measuring the time and location on our earth, we use this longitude and latitude, and this latitude is the line that is running horizontally, and here we are calling it as rings. And if I make even rings 3, now what happens is, see the shape of this object. If I enable this solid state, you can now see the shape of this object. So I can convert a sphere while creating into this rhombus shape. Instead of 1, I will set the radius to around 0.5. I want this to be above here on this plane. So for this, along the z-axis, I will move it by 0.5. I will press 7 and come to the top, and I want this to be placed exactly at this corner. So in x-axis, if I move it by 1 meter, I come here, and y-axis, if I move it by -1, I come here. So I have exactly placed it at this location, and I am going to call this sphere as a rhombus. You can come to File, and you have one option, Save As. You click on Save As, and in Save As, in your folder, somewhere in your folder, say for example, I have created a folder called Satvik Blender Works, and in this your Blender Works, in your name Blender Works, I create a new folder, and I am going to create a folder 1_ object mode, and in this I am going to name this file as 1_ primitives, and I am going to save this. And in our next session, we are going to continue from here, and we are going to explore the other primitives that you can build in Blender. So let us meet in our next session. Thank you.